I'm Giles Reaves from Selig Audio, and I'm here today coming from beautiful, sunny Hell's Kitchen, New York City, right across the street from the headquarters to the Hand, if there are any Marvel Defender fans out there. The ColoringEQ is a 7-band paragraphic style equalizer that employs saturation in a unique way and is musical on many different levels. Why another EQ? That's actually the first question I asked myself when developing this device, because I assumed it would be the first question most people would ask at this point in time. Why another EQ? There's so many great EQs out there already, and I decided that I wouldn't do another EQ if I couldn't offer some sort of unique features that would set it apart from other equalizers that are already available. I feel like the saturation aspect alone makes it unique and makes it its own thing. It's a coloring equalizer, which I don't know if that really exists before, at least not the way I'm doing it. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when thinking of a musical EQ is broad, beautiful, gentle slopes. And of course, we give you broad, beautiful, gentle slopes with the ColoringEQ. The shelves in particular have this wonderful slope at the lowest Q setting, but you can also increase the Q and get this beautiful peak dip effect, kind of like what you get with the Pultec EQ when you do the cut boost trick. The parametrics include proportional Q and standard types, which is the same thing as thinking about the difference between the E and the G type EQ in the SSL world. Plus, we give you the same two variations with asymmetrical parametric EQ types. And for anybody out there that hasn't had a chance to play with these, I consider these to be musical because of the common rule or guideline that it's better to boost broadly and cut more narrowly when you're trying to be more musical with your EQ. So an asymmetrical EQ does that naturally. In our case, when you switch from a symmetrical to an asymmetrical, the boosts are wider and the cuts are more narrow. And of course you can go even further with the Q control, but just that one little thing gives you a much quicker path to your musical EQ goals. Additionally, we have two boutique type tone controls, the classic tilt EQ and the tilt shift variety, where you can tilt it like a seesaw or shift the whole thing around up or down. Plus, the Q control in this mode becomes a spreader, essentially moving the center, the two frequencies apart from each other to leave it flat in the center. We also have a unique smiley frowny, as I call it, because it's the same concept, but both the low and the high go up, or both the low and the high go down, and they can also be spread out to leave the center flat. When you do that to an extreme, you can get much like a high and a low cut filter applied to the sound from a single band. Finally, what makes the equalizer and the filter musical is the fact that the tuning is done in semitones from 20 to 20K across the entire spectrum. Every band can be tuned to every frequency. And this allows you to target your EQ to musical intervals, and of course you'll still see the frequency readout when you're moving the control, but this really allows you to see that relationship between pitch and EQ rather than frequency and EQ. And I think that's very helpful and it's very musical. And because it's tuned in semitones, we also give you full CV, gate, and MIDI control. So you can essentially call this equalizer a musical instrument because you can play it like a musical instrument. Not only that, but that level of control allows you to do things like use the audio to MIDI feature in Reason to take a vocal track, convert it to MIDI notes, and use that MIDI note to adjust the high cut filter so that it's tracking the vocal so that it never cuts out too much, but also doesn't leave it too low at any point, and other tracking type effects. Also, you could do a classic dip EQ on a kick drum controlled from your bass track so that the notes that are played on the bass track control which frequencies are cut out of the kick drum. And this happens dynamically too, because we have a gate control that can be applied to the gain, so that if you had like a 12 dB cut and you hit it with a 127 velocity note, it would be a 12 dB cut. But if you only played a 64 velocity note, it would be half of that, or 6 dB cut. And then when you don't play any note, there's no cut. And then there's attack and release controls for that as well. And there's a glide control so that you can glide the frequencies around if you're trying to track a bass line that has glide on it, or just looking for a musical effect. So all of these things together make it a very musical equalizer. Yeah, there are a lot of additional features I've left out, which I should mention. There's the built-in spectrum analyzer with its handy hold node that lets you accumulate the spectrum over time and see the big picture. There are the mid-side modes, and I gotta say, side EQ with saturation is pretty cool. There's the harmonic section that allows you to choose odd, even, or anywhere in between for your harmonics that are generated by the saturation section. There's the fine-tune control in case you're not working at A440 or need further surgical precision with your EQing. And there is the incredible back panel, which is more like a modular synthesizer, because each EQ band, in addition to the full CV control, has its own separate stereo audio input and output, including the filters, and each EQ also has a separate saturation out, so you can process things separately if you like, reconfigure the whole thing if you like. And I've also included some combinators which explore parallel EQ, multiple notches, or filter bank type effects of multiple bandpass filters. So thanks for everyone who's made it to the end of this video. I hope if this has piqued your interest in the ColoringEQ, you'll give it a test drive and see if it's something that fits in your Reason rack.